Welcome back, everybody. I'm Larry Kudlow. I'm here with Rob Astorino. He's the Westchester County Executive. He's also the Republican candidate for Governor of New York. Let me just say to our listeners, we will again, as we always do, offer an invitation to Governor Andrew Cuomo to come on this show. Right now we're talking to Mr. Astorino, has a big bang tax cut plan to revive economic growth in the state of New York. Rob Astorino, tell me about fracking. Pennsylvania fracks, and they've had tremendous prosperity and job creation. New York State won't do it. Cuomo won't do it. It's happening all over the country. How is this possible? Because New York needs so much help in upstate.
You know why Cuomo won't do it, Larry? Because Yoko Ono says no. Because the far-left environmentalists will not permit it. And that's a shame, because he's basically telling the rest of the state, which is economically depressed, you're on your own. And we are blessed in New York to have deep deposits of natural gas, the Marcellus Shale, the Utica Shale. And if you look at what's going on in Pennsylvania, as you just mentioned, Ohio, and 30 other states, led by Democrats and Republicans, supported by not only the president, by the way, and our own Democratic senators, Gillibrand and Schumer, but also the EPA, the Energy Department, Interior, all say it's safe. And yet, we're not doing it, and we should be doing it. And I will set up in the first 90 days of my administration the rules and regulations to go forward so we can actually bring in this investment and business and grow the economy. I mean, we're expected to get billions in revenue. The own state estimate, the DEC estimate, is 50,000 jobs created by this industry. And it will lower our energy costs, which will help certainly Long Island and Westchester and other areas, including New York City. And it will create opportunities for, as I mentioned before, manufacturing to come back. And it's absolutely a dereliction of this governor's duty that he's not even allowing fracking to go forward.
All right,
I will.
You're going to slash the personal income tax. You're going to slash the corporate tax. You're going to abolish the estate tax. You're going to move into energy fracking. These are all major pro-growth initiatives. What is Mr. Cuomo's reaction? There's a big story in the New York Times, I don't know, yesterday or the day before. What is Cuomo's second-term plan? There's no ideas. He won't respond to it. I guess he's not responding to you. What's this guy going to do?
Your guess is as good as mine, because there's 24 days to go. He's not uttered one word about a second term. All he does is put on with $25 million of pay-to-play campaign money, just the nastiest false advertising about me that you could imagine on TV. He also is, he takes from people's right pocket, gives them a little piece back into their left pocket in a tax rebate check right about election time, and thinks that's economic policy or that he's going to buy votes. What we don't need is a tax raiser or tax shifter, as we have with this governor. We need a real pro-growth tax cutter, because if we are dead last, and we are in this nation, there's only one way to go. I don't understand why we're going to be content to just sit here in a malaise in dead last. Larry, and I say this too, other than just, the island of Manhattan, which is doing fairly well, the rest of the state, in the suburbs especially, extraordinarily high taxes and treading water economically, and upstate, high taxes and in an economic depression, and this governor does nothing about it.
Why won't he debate you? This is a weird thing. Up in Connecticut, Governor Malloy and Tom Foley are fighting it out. They've already had, I think, 3 debates. They got a couple more. It's a tough race. Why won't Cuomo debate you? Why isn't the New York media, the New York City media, screaming for a debate here?
Well, they certainly should. We're doing one debate on PBS in Buffalo, like a Buffalo local debate with 4 candidates on stage, and then nothing else. He offered, he wanted to do one on radio at 10 in the morning, no cameras permitted. That's the nonsense. And here's why, Larry, because I've accepted 5 debate proposals from WABC TV with the Daily News and Univision and Legal Women Voters and many others. You've got the Attorney General candidate and comptroller doing it on TV. The reason why he won't do it is simple, because then he would have to answer these questions that he's had not to answer, and that is, why are you putting all these false advertisements about me on? Why are you under investigation by federal prosecutors for the corruption? Why is this state dead last and no better than what it was 4 years ago when you took over? In fact, some would say much worse. These are the indefensible, and so he would rather just bombard us on TV with 30-second false advertising as opposed to having to defend and talk about what he would do in a second term. Because right now, all he's doing is catch me if you can. He went to Israel. He went to Afghanistan. He just announced yesterday he's going to the Dominican Republic in a week. I mean, seriously? So this is anything but debating, and it's not debating me. It's talking directly to the voters.
Does he want fracking in the Dominican Republic?
You know what I said too is
maybe he wants tax reform down there. I don't know. They produce a lot of good baseball players and tennis players. Maybe he wants. I don't know. What's he doing in the Dominican Republic?
Well, the Dominican baseball players, if they get stuck playing for the Yankees or Mets, they'd have the highest taxes, and they'd want to go down to play for the Marlins.
Right, they'll stay down there. Let me ask you just quickly. The Moreland Commission was set up by Governor Cuomo to investigate state corruption. New York State may be arguably the most corrupt state in the country for a variety of reasons. As I understand it, Rob Astorino, Governor Cuomo initially said no boundaries. Let them investigate whatever they investigate, including the executive office of the governor. Then the Moreland Commission started investigating the executive office of the governor, and he called the commission off. And even worse than that, his attorney general, Schneiderman, who had deputized the commissioners, who could have said, no, we're going to keep the commission going to investigate corruption, he went along with Cuomo. So John Cahill's attacking him on that, Republican candidate for attorney general. But in other words, this didn't have to happen. Cuomo could have turned it off. Schneiderman could have kept it on. Meanwhile, the corruption in New York continues.
And it was worse than that because he called into his office and his top aide demanded that this independent commission call back subpoenas that were being issued, not target certain Democrats and Cuomo people and donors, to lay off anything on the governor's office, and to attack particular people, including Republican legislators. This is the worst of the worst. And when they were following the breadcrumbs and the corruption was leading to the governor himself in his office, that's when he abruptly shut it off. This is not an advisory board. These were 25, basically, deputy attorney generals with subpoena power, independent. So he didn't have the right to do that. And that's why he's being investigated for obstruction of justice and witness tampering and everything else.
You know, years ago, Louis Lefkowitz, I don't know if people remember him, I knew Mr. Lefkowitz. He was state attorney general, Republican. Governor Hugh Carey, who was a friend of mine, a pretty good governor, but Carey turned off a commission and Lefkowitz said, no way. They report to me, and he kept the commission, and it did some good. So Schneiderman won't do that here, and Governor Cuomo doesn't want to mess with it. New York Times did call him on it. I give the Times a lot of credit for calling him on it. The trouble is they've stopped doing it, and now the Times, I've just read the front page story today, Rob Astorino. I said, oh my gosh, this is great. I've got Astorino on the show. The Times is promoting me. They're giving you a front page story. But they don't mention your tax cut plan or your fracking plan. What the heck is that about?
I know. It's kind of ridiculous that they would not include that or any of the real corruption against Cuomo. But, you know, look, this race is closing. Cuomo is in a sharp decline. We're on a steady little rise. It's getting closer and closer. And that's why the attacks are getting worse and worse and more vicious and more false against me. And if people donate money to robastorino.com, we're going to win this in the last 24 days. Cuomo knows that. In these polls, he's under 50%. In the Rasmussen poll, it's down to 10 between us. So it's a winnable race. If people think and want us to win, then you got to donate and you got to be involved, and that's how we're going to win. So go to robastorino.com.
What you going to say just in the last minute, Rob Astorino? You got 3 weeks to go. What's your pitch?
We're all over the state. We're going to win upstate big. We're going to really be competitive in the suburbs, and New York City is going to be a light turnout, and that means we're going to win this race in this kind of climate.
Growth.
So vote, donate.
Growth, Rob Astorino. And
That's
optimism.
Right.
I like your optimism. You fought uphill in Westchester. You're a tiger. You can be optimistic. You know what's wrong. You know how to fix it. You can get it done.
I'm
Larry. Rob Astorino, thank you. All best of luck in the campaign trail.